Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last task of this particular week 10. In today's task, that is task number 51, we are going to create a structure, or I should say, an array of structures, right? And we are going to get uh, the details of the student's record from the user. Namely, the structure will be holding three things: the name of the student, the roll number of the student, and the marks obtained by the student. Okay, so the structure will be having these three things, and such there will be 10 students whose entry we are going to take from the user, and after that we have to print the first three droppers on the screen. Okay, so it's pretty simple problem. Basically I will just show you how the problem will look like. Okay, so basically you will be entering all the data one by one for every students till student number 10. Okay, and after that your program should display the first topper as whatever is his details, the second topper and the third topper. Okay, so let's begin programming this. Okay, so let me start with the template. Here I will clear out this, and I will just say let's call it topper finder. Okay, and what are the variables that we require? So before we start with that, we should define the structure first, right? So let's define the struct, and the name of the structure given is, you can name it anything, but since it is given in the aim we should follow that, right? So we have that, and after that the curly braces, and inside that we should define all the members, right? So the members are, there are three members: name, roll number, and total marks, right? So let's start. Name should be a string, right? So let's make it a character array, right? So let's call it name, and let's give it a size of 30. Okay, next roll number will be an integer, right? So integer roll number, right? And finally marks may be float, right? So let's take float, and let's call it total marks, right? So we have three variables inside the structure, right? So now it's time to define the structure, right? Declare the structure. Okay, so let's use the structure to declare a variable, right? So the way we do that is we just start with struct, then the name of the structure, that is student record, and then the name of the variable that you want to give to the structure. So let us call it as student. Okay, and since this would have been fine if it is only a single student, right? But we have multiple such students, right? So for that we could do an array of students. Okay, and we are also told that we have 10 students, so the array size will be 10, right? So this is the way we declare a structure. Okay, array of structures. So it is similar to the way we declare variable arrays, right? So we just add the square brackets, and the normal structure becomes a array of structures, right? Once that is done, now it's time for us to take the input. Right now, to take the input we have to take it one by one, since there are 10 students, right? So obviously we will be needing a for loop, right? So let's start with the for loop, and since I have to count from 0 to 9, I will take an integer. Okay, and I that will start from I equal to 0 to I less than 10 because there are 10 students that we want to get the data of, right? And then I plus plus, right? So now we have the for loop which is going to run from 0 to 9, that is 10 times, right? So now let's get the data of every student one by one, right? So let's start with printf. So enter. Okay, so what I've done is I'm going to print enter student 1 data. Okay, so basically this has to be replaced by the number, okay, of that particular iteration. So if I put here I, but then I starts from 0, right? So it's not a for the user it would be better if I start with 1. Okay, so just for just showing to the user, I will just add 1 over here. Okay, just remember that we are adding 1 to I, but we are not saving inside I, so the value of I doesn't change. Okay, so the I value will be sorry, the percentage D value will be whatever is the value of I plus 1. Okay, but that will not be stored inside I. That is to be noted here. Okay, then once that is done, now we can start the uh, input, right? So I will first start with the name of the student, right? So okay, so I start with name. Then after reading after just printing the name, then I will actually read the name from the user using scanf. And now here to remember, it's a character array, right? So now to take the name, you have to use either put s sorry get s, this will do, right? And here you just have to give the name of the structure, that is student, and inside the array you will give the index I dot, then this is very important, it has to be dot name. Okay, so if you don't do this, then you will get a error because you have to save it inside the particular uh, structure element only. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is using printf sorry scanf, right? If you want to do using scanf, if you use percentage s, okay, and the same thing I will repeat here, this will work, but it will work only for a word. Okay, it will not accept a full name, right? So a full name will have a space in between, so that will not be accepted by the percentage s. So if you want to accept full name, then what you can do is you can just add a square brackets and then use this. Okay, so this will give you access to the full name, right? Now very important to note over here is both of these methods are correct, but we will be using the second one specifically because in this particular case, if you use the first one, you will go into an error. Okay, so I will just show you what that logical error is going to be. Okay, let's try to use this. Okay, so let's I will just cut this and paste it over here, and we will take it later. Okay, now let's try to stick to this. Okay, and let's go ahead and take the input of the remaining two values, that is roll number and what is the other number, total marks. Okay, so let's take the input of both of them, right? So let's do printf. So printf roll number, right? And after that I would do a scanf, right? And because the roll number in the structure is integer, I would be using %d over here, right? And now to access the variable, the logic will be similar. Okay, I just have to do this, but instead of this I would use the name of that member, that is roll number, right? Then again the same thing I'm going to repeat for the total marks. Okay, so again the same thing, total marks, and instead of this I will replace it by total marks. And also this total marks is a float, right? So here it should be %f. Okay, so this finishes with our basic input, right? And just to make it look a little better, I will just add /t in front of the text, right? So that it is a bit indented. Okay, and also you should remember that when you are taking input of the string, okay, which is basically a character array, you don't need to put the ampersand sign, whereas whenever you're taking input of the other variables like int, float or character or double, you always have to use an ampersand sign in the scanf command, right? So that is very important, otherwise your program will crash. Okay, so once this step is done, I am ready to test it out. Okay, and I will show you why we should not use getters. Okay, so let's try it again, and you can see the advantage of adding that /t. So it adds this additional space. Okay, so let's begin. Let's add some names, some roll number, some marks, and you can see what has happened. Okay, so now this is what I was telling you, that you should not use getters. Okay, so what has happened is, after you entered total marks, here it should have been waiting for uh, it should have been running the getters command, right? And it is waiting for a string to be entered. The problem is, as soon as you press enter, that enter is also is stored inside this name. And since it getters breaks after the new line is inserted, so the enter is nothing but the new line, right? So that's why this particular name parameter is skipped directly. Okay, so to avoid this skipping, what we normally do is we just add a space in front of the scanf, right? So whenever we have something like this, we have seen this in previous tasks also. So whenever we have such a problem, we use scanf command, right? So let's switch to, let's remove this getters from here and use a scanf command. And this command will also have the same problem, but we can overcome it just by adding a space in front of the %sign. Okay, so that will solve our problem. Let's try to run it again. Okay, so let's take some data, and you can see now it's working, right? It is asking for the next name, right? Okay, so it is working. So I'm not going to enter all the 10 data. Okay, so let's stop there. Now let's continue with our problem. Okay, so now we have taken the input, right? Now our task is, once we have the input ready, the next task will be to sort the entire structure based on the total marks, okay, in the descending order. Once we sort it in the descending order, then the first three numbers, first three students will be the first three toppers, right? So let's start with the function. Okay, so the way I would like to do it is I'm going to um, call a function over here. Okay, sort, let's say, students, right? And to this function I'm going to give this particular structure. Okay, so basically I'm giving this structure, which is an array of structures, to this particular function, and at the end it is going to give me the sorted output, right? Now one thing to remember is the input to the function is an array of structures, right? And as we have all seen in the arrays chapter, whenever we are passing an array, it is passed with the address, right? So we did not return anything, because whatever operation will be done with by the function onto this variable, it will be reflected in the main function also, right? So we need not return anything, right? So the function will have a void return type. Then we will have the name of the function, right? That is sort students. Then the body will have one argument, and that argument should be of type this the same type that the structure is of, right? So let's copy this entire thing and let's just paste it over here, right? So it is the same thing, it is the same type of variable, so it is able to accept it readily, right? And if you want, you can change this name, it will not matter much, but the remaining everything should be same. Okay, so let me just change this to S for simplicity, right? So my the array of structures name is S, and the size of that structure is 10. Okay, so I can store such 10 students. Okay, so this is actually getting populated by this function. Okay, so basically main is going to send me all the students, and it will come over here and get saved into S, right? So once it is saved, what I have to do is I am going to simply use bubble sort, the way we have seen it in the arrays chapter. We are simply going to use bubble sort, and you must be knowing we need two for loops for the bubble sort, right? So let's declare the two variables I and j. Then we will start with the first for loop and the second nested for loop. The first one will be for I, so I will start from I equal to 0 to I less than. Now here there, if you remember, it was n minus 1. Okay, so if you just refer the sorting task, you will see that it has to after the optimization we have used the formula of n minus 1, and we know the number of students is 10, that means n is 10. So n minus 1, that was 9. Okay, so I'm going till 9 and then I plus plus. Okay, and then here it will be for j equal to 0 and j less than. Now here also it was n minus 1 minus I, right? So if you refer the sorting task, you will see why we have done that. I have explained it there. Okay, so n minus 1, that is 9, 10 minus 1, that is 9, so 9 minus I. So this was what we derived there, right? And then j plus plus, right? So these are the two for loops for optimized for loops for the sorting, bubble sorting, right? Now the only thing left is just to check if it is which one is greater, right? So I will just do s of j dot total, let me just copy this, total marks, right? If it is less than, okay, so if we do less than, then it will do descending sorting in the descending order, and if I do greater than, then it will do sorting in the ascending order, right? So it will be this plus 1. Okay, so basically I'm checking the current element with the next element, right? If this is less, then I'm going to sort, because I want to do sorting in the descending order. That's why the less than symbol is there. Okay, so now once that is done, now if it is true, then I have to swap, right? So I have to swap s of j with s of j plus 1, right? Now to do that, I cannot do it directly. I have to have a temporary variable to which I will be storing one of them, and then I can do the swapping, right? The way we have done it in normal variables. Okay, but there is a small problem here. I cannot use int temp. Okay, I cannot use this data type. Okay, the reason is the value that I'm going to store inside temp should be of the same type, right? But s of j, or basically s, is a type of a structure, right? So temp should also be of the same type. So what we are going to do is we are going to declare a new variable called temp, but it is going to be a structure of student record, so that all the value of s of j can be stored inside temp. Okay, so now the process is pretty straightforward. I just have to do the swapping. First, store any one of them. Let's store s of j into temp. Then s of j will be equal to s of j plus 1, and then s of j plus 1 will be equal to temp. Okay, so basic swapping here. So first I stored s of j into temp, then s of j is s of j plus 1 is stored into s of j, and then temp is restored. Okay, so once this is done, once all the iterations are complete, my complete structure, that is s, will be sorted. And luckily, because it is an array, we have passed an array, this s and this student, okay, so they both are same. Okay, so it will automatically get reflected. So that is the good part. So now the only thing left is we just have to print the students. Right now, to print the students, we can again create an function to for printing. Let's do that. Okay, so let's there will be no return type, and let's call the function as print student, right? And it is going to receive again the same, but it will not be an array this time. It will be a single structure. Okay, so that is very important to understand. And in this case, when it is passing a single structure, it is not giving you the memory address, right? So whatever you are passing over here, whatever you change over here, will not be reflected in the main function. Okay, so that is very important to understand, right? So once we do that, now we can just print out the students details, right? So I can just write printf name. We'll just try to beautify a little bit. So percentage s, and it is s dot name. Okay, so that will be my first printf. Then similarly I will be doing two more. Let me take this as roll number. Let the first one will be roll number, and this will be percentage d, and this is roll number. And the third one is the marks, which is percentage f, right? Let me just name this as marks, and this is total marks. Okay, so this I have printed the students details. Now I can just come over here and just say printf the first topper is, or I can just say first topper, new line, and then I can call that function to print, right? So the function name is print student, and inside that I have to pass the structure, right? Now the structure is student, and out of that the first one is the first topper, right? And similarly I will just copy paste twice, and I will name it as the second topper and the third topper, which is the first index and the second index. Okay, so the first three students are the first three toppers after sorting, right? So I hope this does it. Let me just check again. Okay, let's run it and see. I will just quickly write down, enter the data. Okay, so I have entered 10 students data. Now if I press enter, I expect the first three toppers. Let us see. So you can see I have got three entries over here, which are basically I'm getting the first topper is 98, which it's Arun, right? Let's check whether Arun is the topper. Exactly, Arun is the topper with 98 marks. Okay, the second topper is Sanjay with 87 marks. Let us check. Yes, Sanjay with 87 marks. And the third topper is 67 marks, Junaid. Okay, so let's check whether Junaid is there. Yes, Junaid with 67 marks. Perfect. Okay, so this our software is working perfectly and finding out the first three toppers. Okay, so I hope you have understood from this program a lot of things. First of all, how to handle structures, array structures. Okay, and then we have also seen how to pass structures to the functions. Okay, and we have seen both the things, how to pass, what happens when you pass uh, array of structures, and what do you pass a simple structure. Okay, so both of them are very important. I hope you understood this program. We will see you in the next week.